Fireside Tales. Hello. I'm Merlin, Mililli. Welcome to my fireside, where we tell tales within tales, and we get weird, and our furry friends photobomb, and we drink coffee. I did drink tea for a few episodes, but decided on coffee. Also decided to shoot for mornings. Fireside Friday mornings, I think, are smart, because then you can start your weekend weird. So, I really need a spoon. I'll be right back. I'm out of milk. I went with condensed milk, and it's condensed. I need a spoon. So, condensed milk in a pinch is quite good in coffee and tea. Got my skull mug because I'm a deadhead, and every week here at Fireside Tales, one of the tales within the tales is the story of the Grateful Dead. I tell it every week in a slightly different fashion. And we talk about reincarnation here at Fireside Tales. And I talk about the Akashic Records, or the Akasha, and my book in it. The Akasha is a meditative library where every soul has a book, and each book tells the story of the soul and where it's been, or maybe when it's been is a better way to describe it. And I don't really read the book because it's meditative. I just sort of touch it in a certain place, and it shows me like a memory. So I'm a firm believer in reincarnation, and one of my objectives with this show is to enlighten people about reincarnation and what it is, because people don't really seem to understand what it is at all. So, I'm a deadhead, and in our first episode, we discussed why. But if you want to know that, you'll have to watch our first episode. And I was told the story of the Grateful Dead from a deadhead by a fire. It's where the Grateful Dead got their name. I really like the Grateful Dead. It's a band, in case you don't know. I sort of zip ahead sometimes, forgetting people don't all understand what I'm talking about. I just dive right into weird. Anyway, so every week I've been telling you a different person that I've been. We went all the way back to ancient Peru and started from the very beginning of my book after the first episode. So now we're working our way forward. And so first, I'm going to tell you the story of the Grateful Dead as I heard it from a deadhead by a fire, as it should be told. Once, long, long ago, there was a traveler. She traveled by foot. That's how long ago it was. And she happened upon a village where unfolding before her was an atrocious scene. There was a dead body, and around the dead body were all the townspeople squabbling over the dead man's debts and who was going to bury him. So the traveler thought this was just atrocious and didn't think that the people were showing the dead person proper respect. And so she paid the dead man's debts, and she paid for a proper burial, and she prayed over the dead man's body, and she traveled on. Then, one day, many years later, decades even, she happened upon, the same traveler from the beginning of the story, happened upon a life or death situation where out of nowhere, a stranger comes and saves her life. And she says, "Thank you. Who are you? Why did you save my life?" And the stranger says simply, "I am the Grateful Dead." So, some people think that the person at the end, the stranger at the end, is a corpse. It's not a corpse. It's a reincarnated person. It's a story about reincarnation. I believe I've been reincarnated many times. I was born a little tiny baby, lived a life, and then I died, my body died, my soul went on into another tiny baby body where I grew inside that body, and then my body died and I moved on to another body. I also happen to be a medium. I've been able to communicate with the spirit realm since I was a little girl. And it seems to be one of my threads between lives, where I've also been a medium in my past lives, several of them, perhaps all of them. So we went back to the very first page of my book in the Akashic Records. And our second episode, I took you to ancient Peru. And I talked to you about interdimensional travel and penalties regarding interdimensional travel. We discussed karma. We've also discussed smudging and grounding on past episodes. So if you missed any of that, you should go back and watch. I also took you to ancient Tibet, and then we went to ancient Egypt and ancient Sumeria twice, and then we ended up in ancient Greece, where I found a strange watermark that ended up there when I was traveling from ancient Greece to, I guess it would be ancient Scotland or Scotland. The watermark seems to be where time turned from BC to AD. And everything prior to the watermark is dry and sandy and bright. And everything after the watermark is wet and muddy. I think it marks the Great Flood. It's my opinion. There was a flood. I was on a boat. I ended up in Scotland because that was where there was land sticking out. High ground. Then, as the water receded, I ended up in Old England, Ireland, and Scotland. Then I took you to Byzantium, or present-day Turkey. Then I ended up in Turkey again. That's another one of those weird threads where I die. I seem to be born again in the same region oftentimes. Oh, there's a theory out on the spiritual realm that the reincarnated are people who've been murdered. If that's the case, I've been murdered a lot. And I haven't been able to disprove this theory. Like I said, I'm a medium, and it's a theory I heard from spirits. That's what they think goes on with the reincarnated. So, after we were in Turkey again, we ended up in France twice. And I left you last in France. I was burnt in France in 1431 at the stake. And I've discussed these threads. There seems to be, interdimensional travel is a thread, and the penalty is another thread. I had 2 penalties for interdimensional travel where I had to be a cloud bird, and I may have been an insect, but I was called the Fairy Queen. I was queen, so I went with it, but it lasted, seemed like 300 years, so it was a penalty. So I've discussed penalties and karma and interdimensional travel in other episodes. And these threads, the mediumistic talents, music is another thread, art is another thread. I seem to have kept dogs in nearly every life except perhaps the one where I may have kept lions instead of dogs. Lions like dogs. Not cats, lions. That's a whole nother episode. You'll have to go back and watch. I believe that's the third episode, the lions. So this is just season 1, but we're already getting into a little routine here. And like I said, I last left you in France. I was burnt at the stake in 1431. Now, I discussed angels were another thread. And the angels seem to have kept me for a while. Or I may have been born and died a young child. I'm not sure. There's a couple of gaps that I'm still unsure of in my timeline in my book. But today I'm going to pick it up in Italy in 1475. Since every life I got burnt in France, seems I decided on Italy, maybe it would be safer. Turned out to be pretty safe. This was actually, I think, my longest life. I lived to be in my 80s. I was born a boy in Italy on March 6th, which is interesting. He was a Pisces. In this body, in this lifetime, my birthday is March 7th. So we had very similar astrological stuff going on. And this person is notable, like a lot of my other lives. And he's born a boy to a married couple, and his mother died when he was 5. And his father was the Italian equivalent of like a mayor. He was like a city official. And his father was fierce, rather fierce. And like I said, when I touch my book, I get this, these memories, these feelings, this stuff comes back to me. And like violence, like burning at the stake or torture or things like that they stay with you. It's like carved into your soul. And I don't like going to like the burning parts. It's painful. And I've only been a male now a couple of times, and it's always like an awkward male. I discussed my last life where I dressed like a male, and then, or the life before this rather, and then in the life prior to that, I also pretended to be a male, but also got burnt at the stake in France. Twice that happened to me, according to my book, in France. So I guess I decided to move on to Italy. But now Italy is a connection, as are the angels. I didn't discuss that. My last life, they had burnt me and tortured me and raped me before this. So it gives the soul this sort of hell, especially if they're devout Catholics. And apparently I made it for myself. It doesn't really exist. It just isn't where I belonged, though. And the angels came and shook me out of that and healed me and sent me on my way back to be reborn. I think I was with the angels for like a decade or a couple. 1431, I was burnt at the stake, and then I wasn't born again until 1475. So like 50 years almost. Yeah. So 1475, Italy, March 6th. My mother's passed. I'm 5. My father doesn't know what to do with me. I don't want to be academic. Really, I'm an artist. Art is definitely one of my threads. And this is where in this life, this is one thing a lot of people don't understand about this individual who is notable. I'll tell you who he is in a minute, but there is an Italian thread, and that continues after this, and there's also a stargazing thread. This individual is not known for stargazing, but he did a lot of stargazing. And this is the life in which it really started. And that continued. I still stargaze. And I'm mostly Sicilian. So I still have the Italian thread running. My grandparents were both born in Sicily, and they pretty much raised me. So my father was fierce, and one of the memories that I got from my book, and I believe it was one of this individual's first memories that he carried with him throughout his life, and it was of my father beating me and like smashing my head on this fountain. My face, I think I lost a tooth. I think I was so young, though, that it grew back. But I realized the power of stone and grew this tremendous respect for stone, not for my father, but for stone, for being able to kick my butt in that fashion. So I believe it's still there, that this respect for stone. I really understood it being smashed against it. I probably was even knocked unconscious a couple of times. As I got older, I wanted to be an artist, and my father did not want me to be an artist at all. And he was trying to beat the artist out of me. I didn't have a mother there to tell him to stop. So he tried really hard to beat the artist out of me, but it didn't work. And he ended up sending me to school for art after school, regular school, didn't work out. well for me. That is also another little thread that seems to exist in a lot of my lives. There were only a few that I lived as men. This is one of the few that I was actually born a male and lived my life as a man. And I can see why. I mean, I understood wearing armor as a woman and dressing as a boy, that it was safer to travel about dressed as a boy than it was to travel about dressed as a woman. People didn't try to rape boys or men in armor. Not as much as they try to rape women. Or try to beat them up for whatever they have, because they're frail women. Unless they have a big sword. Nonetheless, I don't think I was a frail woman in any of my lives, really. That seems to be a little bit of a thread. And this particular man was particularly strong, and he grew this strength out in the mountains, which is another thread. I still live in the mountains. I spend a lot of time around stone, looking at it, feeling it, understanding it, trying to figure out where it came from, understanding that it grows. Stone grows. Did you know that? We've only just learned that as human beings because we're so smart. So I believe that fountain that kicked my butt is still there. And like I said, I have been some notable people in my past lives, and that is what we discuss here at Fireside Tales by my fireside. We discuss reincarnation. The person I was to become in this life that I am discussing today lived in 1475 Italy, 15th century, and it was Michaelangelo, the sculptor. I know, it seems crazy and weird, but that is what we do here at Fireside Tales. We get weird. I promise that every week we will get weird. It will get weird. It gets weird here. So, last week I discussed that I came from the angels. And I discussed that I became close to Archangel Michael. And I feel like Michelangelo was sort of the embodiment of my relationship with Michael the Archangel. It was like my expression of that relationship. And I guess I just wanted to desperately succeed at life. And I thought that the way to do that was to be a male. I discussed being one other male besides this one, which didn't work out for me. So name is even Michaelangelo. Angel Michael. And he didn't name himself. That's what he was named. Michelangelo Buonarroti Simoni. I think there's a couple of other names in there you could throw around, but I have a lot in common with him. And I know his art without looking at it, I know his art in a way that I shouldn't from this body, from this time period. In a way that others don't seem to. I went to art school. I went to school for fine art, and I did this piece where I was supposed to include, it was for drawing one, I think, and I was supposed to use 3 different pieces of artwork in one piece from 3 different time periods. And so I chose a modern piece that was a red square and a blue square, and it had a green divider. And then I did, or the blue was like circular. And I did Evard Munch's The Scream in all blues in the blue section. And I did David, Michelangelo's David, just a drawing of it. And it was, I did it in oil pastel. But I did David in reds. And Zygmunt's Pried called it magnificent. And it got on the top row in critique. And it came so easily to me, though. I didn't have to do it a bunch of times. It was the first try. And I just, boom, boom, boom. It just came out of me. It was 4 pieces of paper because he's immense. But it was very easy for me. I knew that piece of artwork, and I hadn't seen it. I've seen it now. I saw it at the Louvre. I had been visiting there when I went on my honeymoon. I discussed my Parisian honeymoon on our last episode. He's immense, though. And I knew, like, every angle of him, somehow. I know how. One of my first sculptures as an artist, I went to school, like I said, for fine art. One of my first sculptures as an artist was a satyr. One of Michelangelo's first sculptures as an artist was a satyr. I didn't even know this stuff about him. Also, I have this weird thing with character. People have this weird why they like to tell about the Medicis and Michelangelo trying to make stuff look old and trying to sell it for more money, but that isn't what he was doing. He believed, and I still believe this, that a piece of art doesn't really have any character unless you throw it down the mountain or it's been out in elements for a little while or something. The perfect, pristine pieces of artwork, he believed, didn't have any character. So it's best to throw it down the mountain because then it'll develop some on the way down. I love that idea. A lot of people can't even wrap their head around it. Why would you throw a precious piece of art? Because it's all about money for so many people today. No one understands art not for money. Like, people don't understand why I make this show or why I paint or anything if no one's paying me to do so beforehand. I went to school for fine art, which is different than commercial art. And that's the difference, mainly, is the money. Fine art means I might get paid before I die, but I get paid in other ways in that I am giving something to humanity. I'm trying to teach people things so that humanity understands reincarnation and me. And other people who've been reincarnated, and so that they can understand themselves. So, Michaelangelo and I probably have the most in common, despite him being a male and me being a female, to all of my lives. But another tradition we have here at Fireside Tales is that every week I sing a version of David Crosby's Deja Vu, because I believe the song is about reincarnation. I'm not certain that Deja Vu is about reincarnation. I think Deja Vu comes from our dreams, prophetic dreams. See a little scene before it happens, and then when it happens, it's a reassurance that you're on the right path, I think. Keep doing what you're doing. So, I've been going with the harp on harp. I like the auto harp. This is what I've been playing. And I join in with my harmonica or mouth harp. So here we go. One, two, three, four. If I had ever been here before, I would probably know just what to do. Don't you? If I had ever been here before and another time around the wheel, I would probably know just how to deal with all of you. And I feel like I've been here before. Feel like I've been here before, and you know, it makes me wonder what's going on under the ground. Do you know? Don't you wonder? What's going on down under you. La-da-da, 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 da. La da da da. La da. We have all been here before. 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 Oh, catch us next week, where we'll probably get weird. Thanks for watching. Have a weird and wonderful weekend. I'm a Mililli Studios production.